Either this D20 is really big or my hand is really small. You decide. I can't even get the camera to focus on it now. Here we go. That's a lighting issue, FYI. If you ever have that problem in one of your vlogs, you can see my hands are filthy with paint today. Welcome back. Thought we'd give you guys a few tips for GMs today. I left without giving official recommendations at the end of my last video, so I'll make sure that I give you some actual recommendations this time out, although I did mention several sources, so you wound up getting like 5 or 6 recommendations anyway. Alright, so you can see that the first base coat is down. On the Beholder, this is a complicated figure. It's going to take a little time to get all of the base coat down because I'm going to do a red maw, and then I'm probably going to stay with just plain white teeth and maybe even plain white eyes. But the big eye is probably going to be similar to a cat's eye. But anyway, you have to do the base on the bottom too. So next time I'll do the mouth and then the ground beneath it. It has a few removable eye stalks there. You can see. I think I lost one already. Okay, one thing about this piece is this is the first one that I actually washed before I started painting it. On recommendation of my friend John from our Ravenloft campaign, by the way. Give those guys a shout out. We haven't been able to play. That's one of my my few live in-person games down at our friendly local game shop, Hit Point Hobbies in Aberdeen. If you're in the area, Southern Pines area, stop by. Highly recommend it. But anyway, today I thought we'd take a look at some settings books, because it doesn't matter if you're playing Pathfinder like me, or if you're playing 5e, or if you're playing Sword and Sorcery, or Swords and Wizardry, or so on and so forth, all the way down the line. I guess Pathfinder 2, might as well give them a shout out as well. You're going to need settings in which to play. Now, Golarion is a great setting, the Inner Sea world, or the World of Lost Omens, whatever they're calling it now. But there are several others with which one can build a campaign world and find a lot of fun for years to come. Okay, but first let's do my recommendations. I've got the books pulled out so I don't forget them. Number 1, the Party Backstory Generator. This is a lot of fun. It's just a bunch of random tables filled with events, and then there's ideas and suggestions, and just for all kinds of things. It's not just for building a party backstory, but also for building an entire campaign world from the ground up. Like if you're sitting around and you have like no idea what to do, you can actually open this book and just create an entire world from it. Now, I've only used the backstory parts, which is pretty cool. It kind of just adds about a year's worth of adventures to your characters, your PC's lives before they actually start. Oh, goodness. Well, you can see my paint on my fingers. Nice and thick there. Also, the mini dungeon tome. If you are at a loss for ideas for a random encounter, or just ideas for what to do for this week, or if you just need, your characters need some, your PCs need some extra experience before they level up, you can just open up the mini dungeon tome and find a 2-page dungeon to throw at them. Let's see here, got a nice map, keyed encounters. My bookmarks are falling out, and it just spans 2 pages. You know, they're broken up by levels. There are various themes. You know, they're all named. Sometimes they have some colorful art. Like this is available in Pathfinder and also for 5e, and it may be available for a couple other systems as well, but at least for those two I am certain. And then the last one I've pointed out several times. It's the Dungeon Dressing series from Raging Swan Press. If you're just at a loss for a detail or two in your dungeon, you can just reach over and grab one of these things. There we go. Legends, Dungeon Inhabitants. So there is, roll a d20, come up with some inhabitants, and it's got a legend attached right to it. That's just a random table I went to. Here's another random table. Oh, this is a collection of stuff from pockets. I use this quite a bit. Utterly worthless, yummy nibbles. So this is D10 table of other tables. So you roll on the D10, and then you build the treasure from the other tables. So that one I use quite a bit. See, a lot of use at my table. So yes, Dungeon Dressing Miscellany. So we've got a little more time. Let's go down to settings. Everybody's pretty familiar with Golarion and the Inner Sea World. I do highly recommend this book, even though they've moved on to the World of the Lost Omens. You know, I guess if you want the most up-to-date lore, you want to get, you know, those books. But the Inner Sea World Guide still offers a lot of bang for its buck in terms of just informing you of the regions and the peoples and the religions and holidays and calendars and all those sorts of things. It's a really, really great book. Very useful, indispensable for running a Golarion-based campaign. The Noble Wild, an Animal Player's Handbook. So this actually has mechanics, believe it or not, for playing player character animals. Now, you may think, well, when is that ever going to come into play? But yeah, in our Emerald Spire campaign, right now we have a magic cat, as we like to call him. I'm always at a loss for words as to how to describe it, but he is a cat. Well, anyway, the Noble Wild has actual mechanics for playing a cat. Now, of course, didn't have this when we started that character, but regardless. But it's also a setting book, so it has its own little setting about awakened animals and whatnot. The Cerulean Seas, I always have a hard time saying this one. Very lovely artwork all throughout this book. It's an undersea campaign setting, just like it says right there on the book. This was transported over from 3.5, but definitely recommend it. It's a good collection of all of the undersea rules. I mean, tells you how to work magic underwater and all that kind of stuff. A lot of good suggestions for how to run underwater combat, which means essentially running it as 3D combat, but then it's also a campaign setting. So, a very cool book, even very useful even after Paizo released its own Underwater Adventures, I believe is what it's called. Oh, that's not a campaign setting at all. Well, here we go. Now, here's a whopper of a campaign setting. Freeport. Now, Freeport was, I think, literally the first 3rd edition campaign setting released outside of Dungeons and Dragons, the official campaign settings there. If you're going to do a pirate adventure, you want to have a pirate setting, big pirate city, and Freeport is your city of adventure. There you go. I've used several bits and pieces of Freeport stuff in my campaigns. Anytime there is a pirate city or a port to be found, I like to dip into Freeport to come up with some good adventures. But I could see running an entire Freeport campaign and it being very, 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 very fun. I mean, it's supported by its own bestiary as well. The Freeport campaign is good for something to give to the players to be able to read through. Though it has a whole lot of GM information in this. There's a lot of spoilers in this. About 3/4 of the book is something the players shouldn't read. There's actual adventure in the back as well. Black Monastery adventure slash, one stop setting. It's what were those old things called? They're it's just an open sandbox sort of adventure. But anyway, I'm going to run out of time on this video, but we'll show you a few here anyway. Teagle Manor, same thing, sandbox, haunted house type of thing. Bard's Gate, that's part of Frog God Games, aka Necromancer Games, the Lost Lands series. Cults of the Sundered Kingdom, all that's part of the Lost Lands. I guess for now the Borderlands Provinces is the main campaign setting book, but they did finally release via Kickstarter the World of the Lost Lands source book, so expect that to hit shelves and PDF providers very, very soon. But that world continues all the way on to Northlands. I can't end this without mentioning Midgard, at least, because Midgard is my personal favorite next to Paizo's Inner Sea, and it may be slowly overtaking it as a favorite. I mean, I just love their Eastern European mythology, just everything about it, plus the variety. It goes all the way from the north to the Southlands. Has several bestiaries attached. A lot of great source books available for Pathfinder. Now they've converted completely to 5e, so a lot of fun stuff. So there you go. So anyway, thanks for watching. That was just a little time here on whatever this is to talk about RPGs. So we'll see you next time.